Tyreek's parents sought counseling services for him with Starr Behavioral Health once he began having depressive thoughts, suicidal ideations, and developed self-harming behavior.
I started seeing them when they were 18. They had just turned 18 and just been released from the hospital for a suicide attempt. They were really struggling with their gender identity and a pretty significant trauma history, a lot of neglect in their family system.
I had an elementary age student, and he really struggled staying in his seat throughout the day, would often throw his stuffed animal or things at other students. The classroom had to be evacuated at least once a week just because of some unsafe behaviors when he would have a meltdown.
Though he had historically thrived in school, at age 16, his acute symptoms of anxiety, depression, and a low self-image presented barriers to his ability to even attend school regularly, which served to further isolate him from friends, peers, and relationships within the community.
And really being able to use drawing and to be able to use those grounding techniques to create a safe space for him, which isn't something that he had. He wasn't safe within his body because of all of his body dysmorphia. He wasn't safe within his family system for lots of reasons.
So I always really worked to focus on safety. So thinking about how can I make him truly feel that he's safe, because you can tell a kid I'm a safe adult and I'll protect you all day, but until he feels that in his body, it's not going to make a big difference. So we would spend a lot of time on helping him to feel safe. So that might be as simple as playing games together to build a relationship.
Tyreek was able to identify the root causes of his emotional pain and express his experience of suffering with what he had long been suppressing. His relationship with his therapist provided the safety and support he needed to explore these painful terrains and build healthy, constructive pathways to healing his long invisible wounds.
We started seeing each other, and initially, he would come in and just kind of sit with a notebook and, kind of draw to kind of sort of ground himself, but wouldn't talk much at all. And so we use that drawing to really kind of build rapport and get to know one another and create a safe space.
Naming feelings, because a lot of children don't even really have the words to describe their emotions or the sensations they have in their body. So we spent a lot of time on that also. So he had more of the words to express how he was feeling.
In doing so, Tyreek was able to rebuild an image of himself as a strong and worthy person. He and his therapist crafted a self-care regimen that assisted him with strengthening his mind-body connection, creating new neural pathways, and helping him discover remarkable traits about himself that he hadn't realized he possessed.
I felt like for a long time that he was using that notebook more as a wall and not as something that we could work with together. But then there came a turning point. I was able to connect him with a doctor to do hormone treatment for him. And that was a real turning point. And being able to get him connected with the right resources. And so kind of being able to fulfill that case management piece for him as well.
Tyreek is not only able to critically look at himself from various angles, but he has learned to love the person looking back.
But after spending a few months in trauma intervention and also his school team really collaborating on a plan to support him the best they could, this school year, his teacher has not had to evacuate the classroom. It seems like from what I've seen, maybe he's having a meltdown a month instead of most days of the week. He's been making friends, so he actually has some identified friends that he plays with at recess. And he's able to regulate his emotions a lot better and actually identify he's having a tough day and tell his teacher that.
And he still brought the notebook in, but we were able to then at least talk about what the notebook was doing and what that drawing was doing for him. And he shared that was something he'd always used in class as well to keep himself grounded in class and to be able to pay attention, which is a really excellent skill. And something that he had figured out himself and was a real strength that he carried with him. And so for me to be able to frame it that way to him, that this is actually a strength, this is, something you're using to cope, to be able to pay attention, to do as well as you are, that's amazing.
So when I first met him, he really thought there was nothing good about him, that he was a bad kid, and he couldn't really tolerate any type of compliment. So even if you just said wow, what a, how wonderful that you're coloring in the lines, or you worked really hard on that. He couldn't accept any type of compliment or positive feedback. And he's been accepting a lot more nurturing from adults and even seeking out adults for help.
For a while, there was a risk of dropout. Real low motivation to complete virtual learning. But as it turned out, when the pandemic was, when we were notified, when all this began in March, the shelter in place, there was a shift in him. He actually thrived.
The same kid is now in a BSW program and doing really well. And just in the last 6 months, he has gotten a job working with kids and is really doing amazingly. I mean, just amazingly well.
So he was more motivated to complete his schoolwork. He was eager to accrue credits toward his high school diploma. The last I heard, everything was going well for him. And I feel confident that if there were some struggles and he could use some more support, that he and or his parent, with whom I also had a good relationship, they would reach out.
So he's now 21 and he'll be graduating in December. And that's super exciting. This was a kid, when I first started seeing him, he didn't think he was going to graduate. He didn't think he was going to go to college. He really planned on not living. And so to see him now and just to see all the progress that he's made is incredible.
So we're not going to be able to control every single experience that a child has, or all the struggles or the traumatic experiences or stress that they've gone through. But I think knowing that they have one adult who sees the best in them and sees that they're valued, just knowing that you can be that one adult for that child, or even if you know that you're giving them 5 minutes of feeling calm and safe, or an hour where they feel like they have someone they can talk to and somebody that really truly loves them and cares about them, I think that just makes such a huge difference for me, knowing that I can provide that service.
No matter what a person is going through, to have a space that you can trust, that feels safe, the relationship is always the governing space. The relationship between you and the person who dares to look with you at things that you're maybe afraid to look at by yourself. So that therapeutic space overall, having a trust and a knowledge that someone is carrying you in their mind, even when you're not in the same room. So, I mean, that can bring so much support and so much safety to a person who's struggling or has long been struggling in the dark on their own with things that they don't understand. It can be very scary.
Even if it's a client that doesn't stay with us, even if it's someone we refer to a better fit, that's the right thing for the client. And so not getting hung up on, we're the only thing or we're the right thing, but really being able to think about what is the best thing for that client and holding space for that, and being able to be upfront with that with the client to say, like, we want this to be whatever is best for you.
We're compassionate, driven, like-minded, and collaborative professionals who are dedicated to the mission and relentless in ensuring that access to quality services is not only possible, but guaranteed for the clients that need them.
To be able to know that, like, I can sit with someone when they're really angry, or I can sit with someone when they're really sad, or I can feel that with them. And that they have that experience, because that's often not an experience that our clients have. It's often not an experience the parents of our clients have. And so really to be able to create that space for parents as well is really powerful and really important. And we couldn't be doing this work if we weren't doing that.
And that's the crux of trauma. It's difficult to survive trauma when we can't move. We can't, either the three principles, fight, flight, or freeze. If we can't manage what's happening, if we can't even try to work through it, that's when we get into real trouble. So I would liken that equation to what we've been able to do via telehealth and virtual platforms, is that we never got stuck.
I think that there are a few programs that are really willing to serve this population. I think that there are a lot of programs that want to serve this population, but don't necessarily have the tools or the skill set to be able to do that. because it is hard. And so if you're working in a community mental health system, or you're working at like a crisis intervention center, and you have to have a caseload of 40 kids, you can't really do the work. And if we don't really get to know what's going on, then we can't really make the progress that we would, that we're able to make. And so I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful that we have the space and the capacity to do that.